All right, guys. So I'm here with Nikki, and Nikki was absolutely beautiful to work with. She is currently in Australia, and we have worked for the last 4 to 5 weeks. And we're just going to jump right in. She has gone through a phenomenal change, and I would love to share with you her story and share with you exactly what she went through and how she feels today. So, Nikki, what made you decide to book in with me?
So, originally I'd gone through a lot of years of CBT, having social anxiety disorder. So I had probably from about the age of 8, I remember having signs of social anxiety disorder. And then when I was a teenager, I saw a psychologist and went through CBT. Again, throughout my 20s, I think at one stage I was even seeing a psychologist for 2 or 3. So now I'm in my mid 40s and I don't like it. And I really felt that I'd kind of done as much as I could, but I still wasn't where I wanted to be. So I'd managed to kind of modify my life to kind of shield me from anything that was uncomfortable. So I was still, spending a lot of time at home, not going out and seeing people. And then I saw your post on one of the Facebook sites. And I was just really curious because I'd tried CBT. I'd got to a point where I thought I couldn't do any more growth. So yeah, that's basically why I was just really curious.
Okay, very nice. And what was happening in your life at that time when you decided, at your work and at your personal life?
Yeah, so I always had difficulty dealing with people in authority. So, and it was very difficult to explain that to people, even psychologists. So, if I was with somebody in a senior manager's position, I would actually turn to jelly and wouldn't be able to function at work. And then I had some conflict with somebody at work. Sorry, the dog's trying to come in on this. Yeah, so I had some conflict with somebody at work. And I remember saying to my mom, this is just so hard. Every day I try and push through and it's just becoming so hard, but I just don't want to do this anymore. And I was even thinking of like giving up my job. And um, so, yeah, so this is really, that was what was happening at the time for me.
I see. Okay, and explain it a little more in detail. So you were mentioning you're having struggles with authority, and then there was someone at work who's really hard to work with. So how long was it going on for?
Okay, so the authority issues. So somebody at work who was in a very senior manager's position. I had to perform in front of that person as well as the company managers. So I actually found myself not being able to perform,
Mhm.
and there was probably about 10 people, my peers, the managers, all watching as I fumbled and crumbled into a big heap. And then from that, I felt that one of the senior managers just didn't have any respect for me. He was treating me almost like I wasn't capable of doing the job. And I actually overheard him saying, Nicola is not capable of doing this. When I knew, yeah, but I knew inside I was completely capable. It was just the social anxiety taking over.
Mhm.
Um, and then with the conflict with the girl, I found that I couldn't assert myself. So even though there was a complex situation, I felt that I'd been undermined. I tried to tackle that in a very nice way by saying, "Oh, can we make sure that we communicate better in the future?" And that kind of turned against me. So I
Mhm.
had this person that was, coming at me, being quite negative, and I didn't know how to conduct myself or how to be more assertive in my communication.
Mm. Okay. And you mentioned, what about your overall work in that sense? You mentioned in your past, what jobs were you having, and then did you progress in your career overall?
Yeah, so I trained to be a nurse, which was a very brave thing to do at the time because I had to move away from home. Um, that was very difficult. I actually chose to be a nurse because I thought that it would be a very nice profession. Lots of lovely, nice nurses that would, welcome you and make you feel very comforted. Um, for that reason, it was not the greatest profession. There is a saying in nursing that senior nurses like to eat their young. So,
Okay,
and that's very true.
and it's very.
Um, yeah, so I chose nursing and then I wanted to progress, and I was quite lucky in that I got given opportunities to step into more senior roles.
Mhm.
But I would have never in a million years gone for a job interview um, for those roles. So what happened is somebody would be going on annual leave and they'd ask people to step into that role, or I would say, oh, could I step into that role for 1 or 2 weeks?
Mhm.
And that's how I kind of progressed in my career. I managed to get through my career without, well, sitting hardly any job interviews. So I was probably quite lucky in that way. So I've always kind of, I don't know, throughout my career, I've always kind of done things so I didn't face anything really uncomfortable.
Mhm.
So I wouldn't have gone for any jobs that involved an interview, for instance. So I probably missed out on a lot of opportunities early on.
Mhm.
And interestingly, like my auntie, there's a few members of my family that have anxiety disorders. And I remember my auntie one day saying she used to be a school teacher and she was in the staff lunchroom
Mhm.
and she remembers being there and feeling like she's a fake and that they're going to find out and someone will ask her to leave. And I actually felt like that throughout my career, like I was a fraud and somebody was going to expose me.
I see. Okay, that sounds so stressful. Imposter syndrome, going through life with imposter syndrome. I know exactly what that feels like. It is just, I'm going to be caught. Is this the moment? Every second, is this the moment they're going to walk in? When someone says, we got to talk, Asha, I'm immediately, my head goes to, oh, okay, they figured it out. They saw something I did and they figured it out.
Exactly. Yeah.
And what have you tried to fix it? How have you tried to fix this in the past? And why did it not, why wasn't it as effective as you needed it to be?
Okay, so I've always pushed myself like to the limit. And I think a lot of like growth, especially with social anxiety disorder, you do have to push yourself out of that comfort zone. And I knew that fairly early on. But what often happens, so psychologists are great at what they do, like fantastic. I've got nothing negative to say about psychologists. But for me, it's like I'm going to use a analogy.
Mhm.
It's like a tree. So if you're growing a tree and you want it to grow in a certain way, you might have to cut the leaves or, bind up the twigs, whatever. And that takes a lot of time, a lot of patience. You have to keep doing it and doing it, but it's not really getting down to the roots.
Mm-hmm.
So the what I feel like working with you, I feel that you've actually got down to the roots. So instead of having to do like constant little work, um, you've just got to the core. And that's where I felt previously the psychologists haven't really got to the core. And it's so simple. Like what you've taught me is actually like it's just really common sense, but no one really, I don't know, you've just like created a whole understanding of who I am and my interactions.
Absolutely. It is so simple, and that's what is the craziest part. So, share with me a little bit about experience with seeing on therapy, CBT. So, what have you tried? How long? Just to let others people know what your journey has been before working together.
With CBT, so I did CBT when I was about 17 for about 3 months. And I just remember at that point they hadn't even diagnosed social anxiety.
Mm.
It was generalized anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
And probably back then there was no real understanding over social anxiety. And it was only through my own, I think I read a leaflet one day at a psychology surgery, and it really resonated. So I had things like I wouldn't be able to drink if people were watching me. I just had this like, I was stuck, or I couldn't bring a fork up to my mouth. So I'd be sat not eating because I physically couldn't. So I knew I had social anxiety early on, but it wasn't actually diagnosed until I was in my 20s. And then when I was at nursing school, I had I was under a lot of stress from college and everything. And I actually had probably what you would call a nervous breakdown.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd actually reached quite a low point. Um, and back then, I went to see a psychiatrist for one appointment and then put me on a 2-year waiting list to see a psychologist. So,
Wow.
yeah, 2-year waiting list. So it was only when I got to Australia, which was 15 years ago, that I started seeing a psychologist. So I saw them for monthly appointments for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And what they really worked on, so at that point, I wasn't really leaving the house, I wasn't going shopping. I used to walk down the street and think that everyone in the cars was looking at me and judging me, judging my appearance, just very bizarre. And I used to have to walk down the street. This sounds like stupid, but I used to have to walk down the street, and if the emotions got too much, I used to pretend that I'd forgotten something. Like I used to pretend that I'd forgotten my house keys so that I could like rummage in my bag, so that I actually looked to other people that like I was doing something. It kind of took the attention away. Um, so yeah, it was around that time I thought I've got to see a psychologist. But they only really worked on stuff like, so if you're feeling that way and you're going to the supermarket, think about what you're going to buy in the supermarket and run through that list in your head. So, and that'd kind of distract you a little bit, but that's not really dealing with the problem of why you feel that way in the first place.
Yeah.
So, and I found that with psychologists, really they were kind of dealing with the issues as they arose without dealing with what was actually going on deep within.
Yes, absolutely. And it's really, you'd see if you deal with a root issue, you'll notice how it manifests into all these little weird thought processes that just come and go, and it just doesn't make any sense. So if you're trying to fix those ones, it's going to be always random, always new. Something new is going to come up. You're going to wake up one day and the old thing is going to be fine with you, but then now it's going to be new, and that's what's very tiring to go through. And
Yeah.
okay, so what were your thoughts of, hypnosis and coaching before you worked with me?
Can I be honest?
Be honest, be honest.
So I was probably quite cynical to be. I just wanted to see what this was all about, to see what you were about, to like, what is this? She can not cure me, but over 4 weeks I can become somebody that's not as socially anxious. I thought that's a bit of a tall order, like 4 weeks, really. Uh, and the hypnosis, I honestly thought hypnosis was like where you go into this complete trance, where you're not in control of yourself.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like that at all. It was just like kind of going into a bit of a sleep where you're still aware of
Yeah.
everything. Um, so yeah, that's how I felt, like completely cynical. But the reason I stopped, and I was probably quite cynical in a way, probably up until the third week. The first week, what really kind of I went, okay, this is all making sense to me. I'm somebody, when I get nervous, I laugh. And I can laugh at inappropriate things. Like, I've laughed at a funeral before.
Oh,
Like,
you're one of
seriously.
those. You know what? I've heard of
I've
this
been,
happening.
yeah. I was at my friend's funeral and I just got into hysterics where I could hardly catch my breath. And I actually started my friend laughing as well. So this is me. I I laugh inappropriately, and it's when I'm uncomfortable. But I knew it was because I was uncomfortable, but I didn't know where it was coming from. And it was actually on that first session through the hypnosis I learned that it's it goes back to my childhood. Like,
Mhm.
if I ever had a difficult situation, internally I would laugh and make light of it. So that when I've become an adult, I've kept doing that. So that was the first thing that I really went, hang on, this is actually making sense to me. And then the second week, it was, I think, the dealing with authority figures. And you'd gone through that and you'd given me my homework to do. Thank you very much. Always looked forward to the homework. Um, yeah, so the authority figures, I worked on that in that one session. And the next day, I actually felt like I'm not afraid of these people anymore. Like, these people cannot hurt me. And now I'm having like amazing interactions with senior managers, like amazing. And then I think the third week was like looking more into personalities,
Yeah.
and you had my personality mapped out just like that. And you presented my personality to me, and I was like, that is me. That is so me. Like, I could not believe it.
And how did it feel when you realized you were mapped out? Do you suddenly feel the sense of control?
Oh, definitely, because I always felt like, so I felt like I've said before, like there was an internal self-belief
Hmm.
somewhere, but I'd actually pushed that down. And I think partly that was because I didn't want people to not like me. If they saw that I was confident and had self-belief, they might think I was arrogant and not like me. So push that down. Don't, show anyone that side of your personality. So when you gave me my personality map, I realized that those things I'd pushed down were actually truly me. And I could actually let them out now and not be worried about what people think and about coming off arrogant or,
Beautiful.
yes, it actually really helped. And also, I always felt like I was an extrovert on the inside that was pushed down. But this extrovert, I would only let the introvert come out. So everything was kind of pushed down. Now the extrovert is definitely coming out. Like, watch out, everyone.
Awesome. Beautiful. And how would you describe the entire experience if you were to
I
sum it up?
think so. I was a little bit worried that you might dig too deep, and there might have been like things that come up that I'd not really remembered.
Mhm.
Um, so I thought, is this going to be a bit traumatic? It wasn't at all. It was very easy and you know, whatever came up was already there in my head. You're going to have to repeat that question for me because I've just had a blank, like in a job interview.
No worries. How would you describe the entire session, the entire experience working together?
Yeah, so not traumatic at all, and actually very easy. So I knew you were giving me things that I had to work on, things that I had to read each day, and I was like, oh my God, I'm not going to be able to do this. Like, I'm busy, and it was actually really easy. Like, I just can't tell people enough how easy it is. It's so simple. And what you've given me is like a complete toolkit that I can dip into anytime. So, and this is what I'm finding now, only 5 weeks in. If I have to have a difficult conversation with somebody, I actually go back to my toolkit and I go, okay, so what are the types of interactions I need to work on here? And
Beautiful.
it's just so straightforward.
Beautiful. And so now, how do you feel about authority and all of that? How is that feeling?
So authority, I have no issues with whatsoever. And I'm still quite amazed at that. Like, I'm still testing. But so far, you know, the president of the company, like, I've even had an interaction with him. Like, amazing.
Beautiful.
Um, Assertive. I'm becoming assertive. I'm not quite there yet, but it takes practice. But I've now, and a lot of the problems I had was around how to communicate. I'd never communicated assertively. So how do I put something in a way that is assertive? And you've actually given me that framework.
Hmm. And how has that been working out?
Yeah, great. So I'm for the first time in my life, instead of taking everything on at work, I'm actually delegating things to people. And
Very,
it's quite exciting. So I'm actually asking people to take some of the work on. And I'm actually getting like really positive responses from people.
very nice. And what do you think about your life now? What are you looking forward to?
So I'm actually, you know what? I haven't told you this, Asha, but I I want to go. It sounds silly, but I really want to go out dancing. I haven't been out to like a nightclub in 20 odd years. And I said to my friends the other day, when this pandemic's over, I want to go out dancing, like to a club.
Beautiful.
Um, and yeah, I haven't done that for years. I feel like I want to get out there, and here I am.
Oh, that's exciting. That's very exciting. Okay, and what was stopping
Yeah,
you before the whole pandemic thing? Why has it been 20 years?
because 20 years ago, the only way I would go out to socialise is to drink alcohol
Mm,
and to get drunk, and then I would get very extrovert then. And then probably about 10 years ago, or a bit longer, I didn't want to drink alcohol anymore because I'd have a great time drinking alcohol, but the next day I would be like super depressed. And it just was really affecting my mental health. So I decided, okay, I'm not going to drink. And then I wasn't able to kind of do the next thing, which was go out because I'd lost that kind of false confidence.
mm,
But now I don't feel like I don't need alcohol to boost me. I just feel like I can go out and be me, be happy with me, and really not be that worried about what other people think anymore.
beautiful, beautiful. And what would you say to people who are, putting off this issue, who are struggling with exactly what you're struggling, with feeling like there is someone inside of them that is confident, that can be a leader and all of that, but they're pushing it down. Someone who's constantly thinking that, I'm not good enough, I'm weird, I can't stand up for myself, I can't be assertive. Someone who's taking a back seat in their own life. And what would you tell them if they're putting off solving this? Because, you know,
I
uh,
mean,
before working with me, you were also pushing it off. You're like, this is all I can do. There's nothing much I can really do about this. I've already put in the work. It's done. So what would you tell them?
Yeah. Well, I think, it's never too late to actually try. And if you've listened to what I've told you, then it's actually really easy and simple. You just need to be given the tools. You need the toolkit. And I think this is why, like working with Asha, she's able to do that for you and make it so easy. Like I've missed out on so many opportunities. I've spent so many hours feeling stressed and had, the sleepless nights and the, oh my God, I can't do this anymore. I want to quit my job. If I'd known that it was this simple, I could have saved myself a lot of pain a long time ago.
Yeah, very nice. And so would you recommend everybody just jump on and be like, don't put it off?
Yeah, completely. Like, but why wait? There's no time to lose. You might as well work on this now, especially as it's such a simple process, like very painless.
Very painless. And what's the most important thing for you in achieving this success?
I think now I can actually, it's kind of opened my world up a bit. So I'm still in the kind of early stage. Like we've only just finished the 4-week program, so I'm still at that stage where I'm really working on what I've currently learned. But now I can actually see, like in the future, I'll probably be the one going to those jobs and going for those job interviews. Like that's going to be me. And I'll put myself up for managers' positions. If a suitable position comes up, I'm not going to think, oh, I can't do that. I'm not capable. I'm actually going to go, no, I am capable. Just get out there and do it.
Absolutely. It's beautiful. I'm so excited for you. I'll check in with you in 6 months.
Yeah, great.
Thank you so much for hopping on and doing the interview. I'm so happy that you really achieved whatever you wanted because in the beginning you knew that you had it in you, and that's why it's so important. You knew you have it in you and you just needed to let it out. And it's just horrible to go through life knowing that you can achieve more but just not knowing how to. And now you know that even if you do stumble, everyone has bad days and everyone's going to stumble, but now you know that I will have the tools to get out rather than feel like I'm lost again. So thank you so much for getting on call. Thank you so much for doing the interview. Yeah, thank you so much. I'll keep in touch with you and we will maybe even do a 6 month interview again and see how you're keeping.
Yeah, it sounds great.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thanks.